Okay, so to give you a quick recap, that we have started the topic of the Harappan civilization, and basically 3 phases are there in which we study this Harappan civilization: the early, mature, and the late phase, or the last phase which witnessed the decline of the empire. We have covered the early phase and we have covered the mature phases also, and in that one phase, the writing part, that is the Harappan script, that we have not covered. So we are going to start our class from Harappan script. That is a part of the mature phase of the Harappan civilization. Okay. So yes, start writing down. Amongst the biggest mysteries, write it down. Amongst the biggest mysteries about the Harappan civilization, are the language or the languages, the language or the languages the Harappans spoke, and their writing system, It is likely that people living in various parts of the Harappan culture zone spoke different languages and dialects. And why basically the scholars are of the view that they would be having different kind of languages, or within a same language they would be having different kind of dialects, because the present time also we find this. Within one state, within one region, we will find that there is one prominent language is there, and within that one prominent language there are some dialects are there. So taking inspiration that the development of a language or of a dialect is not a one-day process, but rather has a history. So they are of the view that might be when we will go towards more in the historical part and we will study the development or the languages of the Prakrit and the Pali, maybe the origin has been from this time period. But again, we don't have evidence, so we cannot say it with full proof. It is only a tentative assumption. Okay. Some scholars have suggested that this language belonged to the Dravidian family of languages, while others are in favor of Indo-Aryan family. So as they are suggesting that the migration of the people had taken place, so might be the origin, the languages of the old Sanskrit in which the Vedas was written, that could be the predecessor, the Harappan languages could be the predecessors of that. while at the same time there are a group of scholars who say that the Dravidian language is older than the Indo-Aryan languages. Okay, so they are saying that might be that these Harappan people would be having or would be speaking the Dravidian language, and when the invasion, the so-called invasion of the Aryan would have taken place, these people would have migrated from north towards the south, and then in the northern part the dominant language or the dominant culture would have been of the Aryans. So this is the kind of some kind of theories are there, but again all these are tentative in nature. Okay. However, there is so far no consensus on the affiliation of the Harappan language or the decipherment of the Harappan script. Decipherment of the Harappan script. Next para. Most of the Harappan writings appears on seals, some on copper tablets, some on copper tablets, potteries, and some miscellaneous objects. Most of the inscriptions, are short. With an average of 5 signs. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 signs is the average. The longest one has 26 signs. The longest one has 26 signs. And when scholars have whatever the sources are there, be it the seals, be it the potteries, be it the all type of inscription, when they have collected all those material and try to find out that what is the range of the number of signs are there, then basically they are in the range of 400 to 500 signs. So the total number of signs till which has been found, they vary in the bracket of 400 to 500. There are 400 to 500 basic signs and the script is logosyllabic, and the script is logosyllabic. Logosyllabic, that is each symbol stood for a word, that is, each symbol stood for a word or a syllable, all a syllable. Okay. So basically it means what? When we were talking about the inscriptions, we have studied this, that some are biscript, some are logosyllabic. So what basically means that, for example, if you want to write deciferment, so you don't write this, but you have developed some kind of symbol like this for this word. So for every word you want to denote, you have made a symbol, and through that symbol you write it down. So that is the way the Harappan script is there and the Harappan language is there. Okay. It was generally written and meant to be read right to left generally. Okay. There are few instances in which writings are from left to right. So the general pattern is right to left, while at the same time we have some evidences where the present system of left to right is also there. Okay. Longer inscriptions that consisted of more than one line where sometimes written in Boustrophidan style. Okay, this is Boustrophidan style. Any idea what is this Boustrophidan style? Yes, so basically you start from right to left, then you in the second line left to right this way. This is the Boustrophidan style of writing. Okay, this is referred to as the Boustrophidan style, meaning consecutive lines starting in opposite directions. Consecutive lines starting in opposite directions. Okay. So this is the development, this is the understanding as far as the written or the script of the Harappan civilization is concerned. So by and large, all the characteristic features of the mature Harappan phase we have covered. Okay. Now we are going to study the salient features of the Harappan civilization. The salient features of Harappan civilization. And in that, the first topic is the political organization. Political organization of Harappan civilization. So what is political organization? Any idea? Anyone having any kind of idea that what is political organization?
State with a political administration.
Yes, please speak again.
So what are the rules, regulations for arresting and following those rules?
Okay, by and large, you have something inside but you are not able to bring it out. The problem is that you don't have that ability, or till now the ability is not there how to give us something, a line to that thing. You know, you understand it. Inside your mind it is there but you are not able to come without. See, basically when we talk about the political organization, it is basically the exercise of power. The basic concept of political organization is exercise of power. Which has two components, the ruling class and the ruled ones. These are the two components are there. One will be the one who will rule and for whom all the rules will be made. This is the basic concept, agenda behind it. So write down the concept of political organization first. Concept of political organization. See, we will study it, that is what we are going to study, but what I am talking about is the concept of political organization. When I am talking about the concept of political organization, don't think it in terms of Harappan civilization only. Rather the basic abstract idea that what is meant by political organization. The abstract idea, the concept is, see, political organization, it is not only for the Harappan civilization, but it is in the present time also. So first of all, we have to understand what is the concept. Then we will see that what is there. That is our agenda to learn in this topic. So basically, the concept of political organization includes a range of issues related to the exercise of power and leadership in a society. The debate on the nature of the Harappan political system, has focused largely on whether or not a state existed, and if so, what sort of state it was. A great deal depends on our on our understanding of the concept of state, and the interpretation of the archaeological evidence of the Harappan civilization. So what we have to basically, in order to understand that what kind of state or what was the nature of the state of the Harappan civilization, before that we have to understand the concept of state. Now, there are varying interpretation are there with reference to this concept of this idea of the state. So if you study public administration, there can be different way of interpretation. If you study political science, there can be different ways of interpretation. Each phase of history, be it the ancient period, medieval period, modern period, the western concept of the state, the eastern concept of the state, thousands of varieties of explanations and the concept and the notions are there. But what we have to study is that we have to study the concept of the state in the context of the Harappan civilization. We don't have to study the concept of the entire state concept which is there in the entire academic system of every subject or every discipline which deals with this idea of the state. So basically we have to confine ourselves towards the idea or the concept of the state in the context of the Harappan civilization. Now, in this context, we have one personality Ilmen R. Service, and basically this personality has given some of the ideas related to all these pre-state societies, all these society which are in the state or evidences are available or what we basically categorize in the proto-history. And Harappan civilization is a part of proto-history. So for all these kind of states or those evidences, Service has given a kind of notion or an idea that what are the components of the state when we talk about these kind of society. So state basically will have one component is some written laws. This is the first concept. All of you can draw a diagram. One is that it has a written laws. It can be civil, it can be criminal, it can be anything. Okay? Or whether there is only just a concept of law is also there or not. Sometimes it can be non-written also. But the concept of the law is there, that which is applicable amongst the society. Now, there is a government. There is the concept of the government. This is the second component. Okay? And the third most important thing what they are saying is that presence of force. This is the thing. Now you people have till now studied the mature Harappan phase, the early Harappan phase. Which, can you highlight any one thing which gives the evidence with respect to any of the thing of these three factors? Any evidence till you now you have studied with respect? Is the 10 Rajan related to Harappan civilization? Definitely we are talking about the Harappan civilization. We are not talking about the entire history. Till now, the mature phase of Harappan we have studied. We have studied the early phase also. Give me any evidence, one particular evidence which you can say that okay, it will come under this heading or under this heading or under this heading. Any idea? Yes? The script.
It may be some sort of written law.
Yes, can be interpreted. So the script. This is the one thing. Okay?
And one more, sir, the citadel and the lower town may be some sort of government.
Yes, some kind of demarcation, division of town. Anything else? That can be their division of the town. It will come under this part, that there can be a government. There we can assume that certain ruling classes will be there and certain who will be providing services to the ruling class. In that way we can assume that they will be living in the lower town area. We have also understood that there were many city centers and there were many villages. So there can be differences of class were there. So in that way. But one thing which is not available is the use of force. There is no evidence of force. So this is one of the limitation of this theory. In the two factors we are getting some kind of evidence. But in one of the factor we are not there. So write down. According to, write down this name, Ilmen R. Service. According to Ilmen R. Service, a state is characterized by the presence or existence of some written or non-written law, a formal government, and has or uses a force. Now in this context, write it down. Now in this context, if we look towards the Harappan sources, we find that weapons are not a dominant feature of the artifacts found at Harappan sites. There are few depictions of conflict between between people in the narrative reliefs of Harappan art. Narrative reliefs of Harappan art. As soon as we will complete this topic, we will study about the Indus art, and we will see that various kind of themes are there around which the Indus art revolves. But we don't find that any kind of war is depicted. So we cannot say that war was one of the dominant feature of the Indus society. Okay. However, next para, however, we have evidence of fortification. We have evidence of fortification in the sites of Harappa, for example Dholavira. Okay. Now this gives us an idea that a political force might have existed in the Harappan civilization. Now again there is a counter to this argument. Yes, we will come to it. So basically we as the dominant thing when one says that use of the force is there, it is with respect, because two evidences we are getting by and large. But when in the context of the force there is a debate that the force is not there, but someone are saying, some who are believing that there would have been a kind of state political system, they are saying that see, site fortifications are there. So why do you fortify any site? Because there is any kind of challenge from the outside invasion, any kind of thing there. Why do you raise a high wall? So that one cannot easily climb the wall, so you can prevent it. And the prevention cause be anything, be it your cattles, be it whatever the material wealth you have, you try to secure it. That is one of the agenda. But again the counter argument is that this fortification does not mean, why they are saying, because weapon evidence has not been found, no skirmishes or clashes evidences are there. So they are again, those group of people who are again criticizing this idea of fortification, they are saying that this might be done only to prevent the site from the wild animals. This fortification, the main agenda was only to prevent the site from the wild animals. And that is why these big walls were made. And one kind of thought with respect to the use of the force is that force, we can say how it existed was that we find some of the sites are fortified. Now those who are countering this argument, they are giving two things. One, it can be the fortification was related to prevention of the wild animals, one thing. Second, we don't find any kind of weapon evidence or any kind of skirmishes or clash amongst the Harappan civilization also and outside also. These are the two contradictory statements are there. Okay, so write down how now you have to generalize this thing. Idea you have, one thesis, one counter thesis, one counter agreement you all have. Now how to generalize this? the Harappan civilization lasted for some 700 years, and its craft production continued more or less changed through this long period, which suggest an element of political stability, maybe if we are able to decipher the Harappan script, we may know who were these political leaders. Okay, this is the political understanding or the political organization of the Harappan civilization. So, who were these people who ruled? We don't have the correct idea or the concrete evidence which can say, okay, these were the classes of people who were ruling. We have some evidences are there which shows that there would have existed a kind of political organization within the Harappan civilization. So, if ever any kind of question you are getting in the mains examination with respect to the political organization of the Harappan civilization, always remember that you have to write down the tone of your answer should be in such manner that you always use the word may, could, should, can be understood, can be visualized, so that there is always a probability, and always write down the counter thesis of that one argument which you are writing first. The counter argument all you should give, and at the end you should write that the decipherment of the script will be the answer to this problem. Okay, remember this part. Now we have the political understanding of the Harappan civilization, but now the question again is that what kind of state it was. We have understood that there would have been some kind of political organization. Through various sources we are understanding, but now the concept is what kind of state it was. Okay, write down. Some scholars suggest that these early states can be divided into three types based on their complexities. So the first is inchoate early state. Second is your typical early state. And the third one is transitional early state. Okay. These three models has been given in order to understand the what kind of state the Harappan civilization had. So basically the inchoate early state means it emerged automatically. No outside influence. Indigenous stimuli. It basically says, this inchoate early state says that after some point of time, when the people would have reached a stage where the population growth would have taken place, where the resources would have been enlarged, and the people would have been in the verge of fighting, automatically a response would have generated in which the people would have elected their leaders in order to solve their problem. A kind of automatic process. And some of the factors which have contributed, the growth of the population, the increasing tension on the distribution of resources, and that would have led the people to choose out a person who would have the dominant characteristic of leadership and give him the responsibility. For example, if they are doing any kind of hunting activity, then some person would have been there who would have been timid, and some person would have been courageous. उसको बोला बहादुर है ये, तो इसी को भेजो. तो सब फिर वहाँ से डिसाइड किया जाता होगा कि हाँ ये बहादुर है तो यही अब लीड करेगा. So at that time cattle warfare would be there, hunting activities would have been done. बोलेगा अरे ये तो पेड़ पे पहाड़ पे भी चढ़ जाता है. So all those kind of stimulus would have led to generation of a leader, finding out of a leader, and in that way these people would have accepted and agreed. जैसे हम कभी कभार पुरानी मूवीज देखते हैं ना, उसमें कैसे लीडर उभर के आता है. तो so that kind of, this is the idea of inchoate state. Now typical early state, it basically means it has a centralized socio-political system. Write it down, the features of a typical early state. A centralized socio-political organization, stratified society, and the presence of the rulers and the ruled. The presence of rulers and the ruled. Okay. So this is the typical early state where we find that everything has been demarcated. There is a class of person who belong to the ruling class, and there is the concept of the praja. There is division of society, that who will be, yes, stratification is there, and everything is consolidated. And between these two, between this first and the second, there lies the transitional early state. Between these two, there lies the transitional early state, and this is where the Harappan civilization falls. This is where the Harappan civilization falls. Now what is this? And this stage is basically referred to as the chiefdom stage. Chiefdom stage. This transitional early state is basically referred to as the chiefdom stage, which is the characteristic features of the notion of the Harappan state. That is, do not get confused the chiefdom stage with state. State. Not, we are not talking about state. State will basically come in this typical early state. They are in the process of that. They are developing in the early stage. So basically the Harappan, it has been suggested that they reflect the transitional phase from this early, from this inchoate to this typical early state. And they have been referred to as the chiefdom stage. Chiefdom stage, which is characterized by centralized direction. Centralized direction. That is why we are saying centralized direction. What does it mean? We see that in the Harappan craft, in the Harappan town planning, there is some kind of uniformity is there. So there is a centralized direction that you do in this way, but that doesn't mean that there is a centralized authority. So that in way centralized direction, hereditary, hierarchical status, hereditary, hierarchical status. Why do we say this hereditary hierarchical status? Basically, when we will study the funerary practices of the Harappan civilization, when the topic of the religion will come, we will see that some of the graves are there in which we find certain kind of gold, some kind of extra lavish materials are there. So that represent that some kind of social stratification would have existed in the Harappan civilization. While some of the graves are there, they are very simple in nature. So that gives even the houses. For example, again one thing, the houses which were built in the city and the houses which were built in the villages, everyone could not have been able to afford a burnt brick, but some people could have afforded to live in the wattle daub houses. Some could have afforded to live in the mud brick houses. So this gives a kind of stratification, social stratification. So this is basically being reflected, the hereditary hierarchical status. And the third feature is,
here the hierarchical status is means clearly visible, but how can you say that it is hereditary?
hereditary one generation to another generation. One generation, see, ऐसा तो नहीं होगा ना कि the people who would be living in the city area, after one generation they would be coming out in the villages, they would be living in the villages. Sometimes we get evidence of multiple burial. Family members all are buried together. Generation of family members are buried together. So this reflects an hierarchy. A hierarchical status is there. Hierarchy is also there. Hereditariness is also there. Multiple burial. It means family. दादा को भी वहीं पे दफनाया गया, बाप को भी वहीं पे दफनाया गया, बेटा को भी वहीं पे दफनाया गया. One place is there. So this represent a hereditary nature. Hierarchy, we have seen some grave goods are there in which we have gold, we have necklaces, we have many extra materials are there, and some we don't find that. So that represents this hereditary hierarchical status within this concept. Again, see, always there will be, when you are studying this topic of Harappan civilization, always counter agreement will be there. क्योंकि जब तक टेंटेटिव हमारे पास सोर्स नहीं अवेलेबल आ जाएगा, we have lots of archaeological sources, but the moment we don't have a concrete source which tells us that this was this and this was that, we are always in a blurred picture. So it might, so one factor might not appeal to you, while the other factor will not appeal to me. So that is the thing. Okay. And the third feature is no formal and legal apparatus, no formal or legal apparatus of forceful repression. So basically this means what? Forceful repression. Repression. basically suggesting that no large scale use of force is there. We don't find of any kind of concept of standing army or weapons in the Harappan civilization. So this is the entire concept, tentative again, but what is generally agreed now is the concept of the chiefdom stage, and along with that you have to mention the three features, that is the centralized direction, hereditary hierarchical status, and no formal and legal apparatus of forceful repression. This is the way how you have to define and tell about the concept of the state of the Harappan civilization. Okay. Now, some scholars have suggested that Harappan civilization was a highly centralized empire, ruled by aristocratic priest kings from the twin capital, aristocratic priest kings from the twin capitals of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. This idea was suggested based on features such as uniformity in material evidences, use of common script, standardized weights and measures, and the apparent lack of warfare between the settlements suggest that they were united under a single rule. So this is again a very interesting kind of hypothesis. Okay. So one, they were saying that the use of force, there was a counter argument that we don't find the evidence of the warfare. Now again there was a counter argument that the reason there was not any kind of war or any kind of warfare, it was not that they were not having a standing army or a use of a force was not there, but rather they were under one single ruler who would have controlled the entire Indus civilization. or this entire Harappan civilization. Okay, this is again counter argument of this. Counter argument. This view has been criticized because the notion what we are talking about, it is basically based on the assumption that Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were the capital cities. But do we have any evidence with regard to this? It doesn't say. They have made an assumption that the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa might be the capital cities. And on the basis of that they are saying, but where there is evidence that the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were the capital cities. So, this view has been criticized. This view has been criticized, saying that Mohenjo-daro was a ceremonial center, and not an administrative one, and whatever would have been the control reflected in Harappan civilization, that would have reflected in Harappan civilization would have been at village level, where interdependence, religion and tradition were responsible for regulating the social behavior. Now this argument has criticized the earlier one. Now if you read this argument carefully, you will see that they are saying that they were organized, or whatever the kind of political organization or any kind of state formation would be there, that would be primarily based on village level. And in the village level, there is a consensus. Okay, we will follow this, we will not do this. You can find it out in the modern time. So what they are suggesting is that earlier the idea was given that it was a centralized empire. The counter argument was given, no, it is a village administration, citing that there are cultural uniformities are there. So basically when they are saying that the interdependence, religion and the tradition were responsible for the social behavior, so citing that there was some kind of cultural uniformity in the Harappan civilization with respect to their script, with respect to their craft tradition, all this suggests that there were cultural uniformity. Now the question is, does cultural uniformity will always lead to political uniformity? Understand this in present time. There are many regions are there in which the languages doesn't follows the political boundary. There are many festivals are there which doesn't follows the political boundary. Right now in Delhi, there, if we go towards the food behavior and the activities, the momo has become very much famous. Now if we trace the origin of the momo, it is not belonging to the Delhi. It has its origin in the mountainous area. But now it has become one of the prominent food in the Delhi. And if you go towards those hill areas, you will find that what kind of momo they make and what kind of momo we eat in Delhi, there is a difference. Basically the entire food, if we have to say in one word, all the junk food of the Delhi, they are basically the process of mayonnaisation. Everywhere mayonnaise, cheese, everywhere it is there. But so can we say that it is the Delhi government which is responsible for introducing momo in Delhi? कभी ऐसा सुना है अरविंद केजरीवाल ने कहा या शीला दीक्षित ने कभी कहा था? कभी ऐसा ऑब्जेक्टिव लेके कहा हुआ है? कभी भी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का भी कभी ऑब्जेक्टिव सुना है कि नरेंद्र मोदी ने कहा है कि डोसा विल नाउ बिकम द वन ऑफ द थिंग? वासुदेव कुटुंबकम का फिलॉसफी देते हैं, बट डोसा कुटुंबकम तो नहीं है कभी भी. So how can we say that always the cultural uniformity is the result of political unification? Sometimes it can be there, sometimes it may happen, but again it is not always a general philosophy. Okay, so write down the counter agreement of again this. Just there is evidence of cultural uniformity does not necessarily mean political unification. Just there have been a level of homogeneity in the Harappan civilization does not suggest political unification, but could be a result of well developed network of internal trade. So if someone is giving the logic that whatever the things which is being found either in the Harappan site, either in the Lothal site, either in the Kalibangan, they are having similar kind of artifact, it may also suggest that it was a action of internal trade, that there would be one center which would be famous for one product, and it is from there, that product, that region, everything would be getting supplied. That is why we said the mature phase as the phase of integration.
Yes, sir.
Mature phase is the phase of integration. So that is why the demand and the supply is there. So it may also happen, you are saying that it is due to political activity. No, it can be a result of internal trade also. That from one area one thing is getting manufactured and from there the supply is getting on. Okay. So these are some of the counter arguments are there. Now write down. However, if we try to collect all the archaeological evidences, when we try to collect all the archaeological evidences and all the arguments which has been given for the existence of political structure in the Harappan civilization, it suggests that some form of state structure, some form of state structure did exist in Harappan civilization, although not a centralized state, but rather a different kind of state, the communication system, full stop, the communication system, standardization in artifacts, the communication system, the standardization in artifact, site specialization, mobilization of labor, for public work, the presence of trade network, all these indicate a level of economic complexity and the existence of a state, the final or the ultimate, question which remain before us is within the quotes, who controlled the Harappan civilization, and what was the degree of control. Okay, and what was the degree of control. So it is with this our understanding of the entire political organization of the Harappan civilization is there. I think many of you would have come to know about this topic in this manner, that how you have to write down the answer. It is in that way that you have to write down the answer. This is the understanding. You cannot write a full, saying that yes or no. If you are getting this question, you should not say in your answer yes or no. Rather, it should be based upon arguments and counter arguments. And in the last, you should say that whatever is the final solution or whatever is the final view, that depends upon the decipherment of the Harappan script. In that way, you should be the final way to conclude your answer related to the political understanding of the Harappan civilization. Okay. Now we are coming towards the social aspect. social aspect of Harappan civilization. Archaeological sources like terracotta, stone and bronze sculptures, help us to understand how Harappan people looked, their clothes, etc. Based on, next para you can start. Based on human terracotta models, some generalization can be made. Harappan women, first point, Harappan women wore a short skirt. Made of cotton or wool. Next point. They wore, it means we are talking about the dresses and the style of the women's. They wore their hair variously in braids means different बालों को बांधने का कई सारा जो तरीका, that is being we are talking about, variously in braids, rolled into a bun, at the back or side of the head. तो ये ऐसे जो बंद बनाते हैं पूरा पकड़ के बालों को और पीछे जो बन लगाया जाता है, so that kind of style, that kind of things existed in the Harappan civilization, and the women were very stylish at that point of time also, and the legacy continues in the present time also. Okay, it is suggested that these hairstyles could indicate women of distinction or deities. But present time में अलग ही होता है ना? Now male figurines are usually bareheaded, though some of them are turbaned. though some of them are turbaned, most of them, second point, most of them are nude, most of them are nude. Certain stone sculptures suggest the use of dhoti like garment and an upper garment consisting of a shawl worn over one shoulder and under the other so यहाँ से एक शॉल लिया, यहाँ से उठाया और इसको यहाँ से ऐसे करते हुए कवर किया. ठीक है. Most of the male figures have beards. So again in the present time also we are continuing that legacy. ये जो दाढ़ी बनाने वाला जो सिस्टम जो आया है पूरा से ह्यूज स्पाइक्स ये वाला, सो अगर कोई क्रिटिसाइज कहता है तो अगर कोई बोले ना कि कहाँ का स्टाइल है तो उसको बोलना कि बहुत पहले का स्टाइल है, हरप्पन स्टाइल है ये. ठीक है. सो दिस इज इंडियन स्टाइल. what we find is that there is some degree of overlap in male and female hairstyles, ornaments, etc. At the same time, we have differences also. Next point, terracotta toys of various kinds have been found at Harappan sites. There are spinning tops. Lattu. Okay. There are spinning tops made of terracotta. And clay marble. At some Harappan sites, clay disc have been found. At some Harappan site, clay disc have been found, suggesting a game like पिट्ठू of modern time. So पिट्ठू गेम के बारे में पता है ना कि नहीं पता है? नहीं पता है पिट्ठू? अरे यार पिट्ठू वाला गेम ऐसा होता है ना, बहुत सारे पत्थर ऐसे रखे रहते हैं, ऐसे पत्थर रखे रहते हैं, दूर से किसी को खड़े होके गिराना है और बाकी जो टीम क्या करती है उसको फिर उसको लगाना पड़ता है. हाँ सतोलिया, ठीक है जो भी है. तो ये दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ पिट्ठू काइंड ऑफ गेम इट इज देयर. सो दिस गेम हैज इट्स ओरिजिन एंड एविडेंस इन द हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन. ठीक है. सजेस्ट अ पिट्ठू लाइक गेम. So basically this gives us evidence about the evidence related to the children's in the Harappan civilization, the activities which are related to the children's. Okay, next point, lots of terracotta figurines, lots of terracotta figurines of dogs have been found suggesting people kept dogs as pets, suggesting people kept dog as pets. Some of the figurines have comic appearance, reflecting a sense of humor, and how Harappans spent their fun times. Terracotta figurines of women depicting women engaged in grinding have been found at Naushara Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, suggesting the association of women with food processing activities. The association of women with food processing activities. Next point, an unusual terracotta figurine found at Naushara shows a male shows a male with feminine headdress holding an infant. All these evidences helps us to analyze and assess the structure of Harappan society. The people who lived, so we are now towards the analyzing part, okay. We are now trying to, whatever is the understanding of the society, we will now write down. The people who lived in the Harappan culture zone, comprised villagers and city folks. Harappan society included occupational groups such as farmers, herders, metallurgists, merchants, etc. Differences in house sizes, hoards of jewelry, indicates a concentration of wealth and differences in social and economic status, The affluent social groups would have comprised rulers, landowners and merchants. Class and rank differences based on occupation, wealth, wealth, wealth and status would have existed, would have existed, however, the absence of, deciphered written evidence, is a major handicap, giving a complete picture, of Harappan society. Yes, giving a complete picture of Harappan society. The absence of a deciphered script लिखा हुआ है ना, absence of deciphered script लिखा हुआ है. Okay. So political we have done, social we have done. Now we are coming towards the religious ideologies of Harappan civilization. Okay. Religious ideologies of Harappan civilization. The basic elements of what Harappan society was matriarchal or patriarchal. No evidence is there to conclude anything whether it is matriarchal or whether it is patriarchal.
Sir, is there sexual division of labor, the work?
Again no evidence. अभी तो हमने देखा ना कि there is a male person who is holding the infant of a child. So even with child activities the male personality is associated. Generally, if we are talking about what is the general idea of the society when we are talking about these kind of society, what kind of labor division do we find in the present time would not, generally doesn't exist. Largely they are egalitarian, largely they are situation oriented. So we cannot say, but again we don't have written evidences available to say anything final. Whatever is the thing is there, if you want to say one thing, it means you rely only on one evidence and you overlook the other evidence. Whatever you will say, if with confidence you are saying, then it means either you have the total knowledge of the entire Harappan civilization, you have read the entire evidences of the Harappan civilization, which is not possible for a one person to do, because still the evidences, still the archaeological surveys are going on. So it is not possible. And if you then try to divide, then you will rely upon one sources, and based upon that one sources you will say one thing. Then there will be another person who will look your counter argument and will try to diffuse your idea. So this is the problem with the Harappan civilization. Whatever is the thing is there, it will be tentative in nature. Okay. So the basic elements of what can be loosely described as Harappan religion were outlined by John Marshall in 1931. In 1931. Who is John Marshall?
Director General of AIS.
So what is his relation with the Harappan civilization? The formal announcement with respect to the Harappan civilization was made by him. बहुत अच्छे से रिवीजन कर रहे हो, दिख रहा है. ठीक है? Okay. So were outlined by John Marshall in 1931. The worship of female gods, the worship of female goddesses, the worship of female goddesses associated with fertility has long been held as one of the major features of the Harappan religion. This understanding is based on factors such as point 1, the concerns that agricultural societies have with fertility. So basically what is being suggested is that for the agricultural people, for the agricultural society, fertility is the most important concept. Why? Because their entire mode of production is dependent upon agriculture, and that should be always fertile. And when they try to look in their life, that what is that? It is the woman, because she is known or is the thing which gives them an idea of reproduction, from where the birth of the child is taking place. So what they will do, that they will try to percolate their ideas in the same manner, that whatever their belief and the affinity are there, they will try to present that concept of fertility in the concept of a woman. That it is being suggested. Okay. So the first is that the concern the agricultural societies have with fertility. Second, cross-cultural parallels with other ancient civilization. So contemporary to the Harappan, we had the Mesopotamian and the Egypt civilization was there. And when we study some of the evidences, factors or the evidences which have come out from the Mesopotamia, that we find there were kind of priest worship was there, cult worship was there, image worship has been there, temples were found. So based upon that also we try to draw a conclusion that if these are the contemporary culture, then might they would have some kind of religious activities also. Okay. Third point, the importance of goddesses worship, in later religious traditions. So right now in the present day we can find that the worship of goddesses is there is Hinduism, Some other kind of religions are also there, like the Tantricism, where the worship of the women deities are there. So what basically the scholars understand is that this thing what we find in the present would have been there, or some kind of roots would be there in the ancient time. This is being suggested. Okay, so this is a third point. And the fourth is discovery of large number of terracotta female figurines that were labeled within quotes mother goddesses. So certain evidences, certain terracotta models have been found in the Harappan civilization, which shows the idea of the fertility. Like for example, terracotta models are there and it is related to women, and it shows that like how the birth of a child is taking place, similarly how the growth of the plant takes place, that is being depicted through the analogy or using the figure of a woman. Okay, so these are the four fundamental factors are there which help us, or which the scholars use in order to understand the religious ideologies or the religious practices of the Harappan civilization. Okay, now write down. The female figurines, the most important is the fourth factor. The most potent factor which we have to study is that the fourth factor, because that is the archaeological evidence. Rest other, the three are the ideas. So between an abstract idea and an archaeological source, the most prominent is the archaeological source. So we are not going to discuss in very much detail the ideas, but we will discuss the archaeological source. Okay. The female figurines which is frequently interpreted as having a religious significance is a slim female figure with a distinctive fan-shaped headdress. So there is an image, the woman's there, and she has some kind of elaborate headdress is like there, representing some kind of the present day halo. जैसे हम लोग देखते हैं ना, कई सारे images होते हैं, उनके पीछे एक halo बना हुआ रहता है, like a gold circular thing is there. Similarly, not similar to that, but some kind of elaborate headdress is there, and that we find in some of the terracotta images which has some kind of religious or cultic interferences are there, while in some images, same terracotta models, we don't find these kind of structures. Okay? So that is why these kind of structure who are having this elaborate headdress are represented as some kind of having some kind of religious significance. Okay, with a distinctive fan-shaped headdress, wearing a short skirt and heavily ornamented. ornamented. Such figures may have been religious images worshipped in household or part of domestic rituals. Now if you understand that why this kind of association what we find, because if you go towards today, even in the present, in the village areas, you will find the concept of the Kul Devi Devta. The concept of the Kul Devi Devta is there. It means they will be following the tradition of Hinduism. The dominant or the 5 important god, Shiv, Vishnu, Brahma, Durga, Ganesh, all these concepts are there. But apart from that, in the villages there is the concept of Kul Devi and Devta. So they would be saying that these mother goddess represented the individual or the family deities, not that larger pantheon deities. So it is, they are trying to draw a logical corollary with this. Okay. Just because of mother goddess figurine, I thought society was more of matriarchal. No, we cannot make a logical statement like this, that only mother goddess figure has been found, or the society is worshipping, female goddesses. That doesn't give us a logical corollary that the society will be matriarchal. In the present time also, we worship the goddess Durga, we worship the goddess Kali, but that doesn't give us an understanding that our society is matriarchal in nature. Our society is still patriarchal in nature. So only worshipping a female deity doesn't give us an understanding that the society is matriarchal in nature. Rather, many other factors are there also. Okay. There is, apart from this female, this mother goddess, there is also a matrilineal. There is also a matrilineal means an aged woman. Okay. There is also a matrilineal pot-bellied, पेट निकला हुआ, type of female figurine who may represent either a pregnant woman or a prosperous woman. A pregnant woman or a prosperous woman. It is interesting to note that female figurines including those with possible religious significance are found in a large number, in a large number at sites such as Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Banavali, but not at Kalibangan, Lothal, and Surkotada. So when we understand this evidence, what kind of picture does it present? Any idea? How you can summarize this point? Batao. So basically it suggests that there is no uniformity. There is no uniformity with respect to the religious worship in the Harappan civilization. Some sites they are giving the evidences of these religious figurines, while some are giving no evidences. At the same time, Kalibangan, if you will remember that there was evidence of fire altar. That is in Havan Kund. So it also gives us an understanding that different form of worship or a different method of worship would have been there in the Harappan civilization. So these two ideas present us or give us this kind of picture that there is no uniformity with respect to the religious worship in the Harappan civilization. Okay. Most of the terracotta figurines were found broken and discarded in secondary locations. None were found in a context that could be interpreted as a temple. So we don't get evidence of temple in the Harappan civilization. Yes. So we have evidences related to the religious practices, modes of worship, forms of worship, but we don't get evidences of temples till now in the Harappan civilization. Okay. Now, next point. According to Marshall, that is John Marshall, the Harappans worshipped a male god. Till now we have studied how these Harappans were worshipping or what was the notion of worship with respect to the female figures or the concept of female worship. Now we will study the concept of male worship. Okay. So according to John Marshall, the Harappans worshipped a male god represented on a steatite seal. Discovered at Mohenjo-daro, usually referred to as Pashupati seal. Pashupati seal. Pashupati seal. The seal shows a male figure. The seal shows a male figure with a buffalo horn headdress, with a buffalo horn headdress, seated on a dais with his leg bent double under him, heels together, and toes pointed down, His outstretched arms are adorned with bangles, and his hands rests lightly on his knees. He is flanked by four animals dash elephant, rhinoceros, buffalo, and a tiger. Beneath the dais are two antelopes. Marshal saw this seal and interpreted it as a striking resemblance between this deity. This deity basically means the seal, what we are talking about. This deity and Shiva of later Hindu mythology. Okay? Of later Hindu mythology, who is also known as Mahayogi or Pashupati. Okay, so basically when Marshall has discovered this seal, he tried to draw a logical pattern that what does this seal basically represent was the proto Shiva. Right now in the present time you will find that the figures which we have discussed, like how the animals are flocking towards the god, the sitting posture, So all this gives us an evidence that what in the present time or what later in the later time when the Vaishnavism and Shaivism grows to a higher level, the proto-Shiva would have reflected this form, and it is from here that the origin of the religion would have taken place. So this is some kind of understanding. So we have studied about the male figurines, we have studied about the female figurines. All other aspects are also there with respect to the Harappan civilization. Write down. Another aspect of the fertility related beliefs of the Harappans was the worship of male and female. Another aspect of fertility related beliefs of the Harappan was the worship of male and female creative energy in the form of stone icons of lingas, and the second is the yonis. Lingas and the yoni. Basically these two represent the sexual organ of the male and the female. Okay? Ling basically represent the sexual organ of the male, and yoni represent basically the sexual organ of the female. So even this kind of worship has also been found in some of the evidences area of the Harappan civilization, and this has been particularly found at Kalibangan, which has been found at Kalibangan. Next point, Harappan seals, amulets, copper tablets, amulets. कई बार आपने देखा होगा हाथ पे लोग कुछ बांधते हैं. That is referred to as the amulet, some kind of believe that it will save us from some kind of evil spirit. पूरा हाथ में अंगूठी रहता है, पूरा सब कुछ. So सारे एक GS पेपर 1 के लिए, एक GS पेपर 2, एक GS पेपर 3 ऑप्शनल के लिए, फिर एक इंटरव्यू के लिए रहता है, प्रीलिम्स के लिए भी रहता है, एसए के लिए भी रहता है, सब है. तो बहुत लोग देना पूरे हाथों में पहन के रखते हैं, तो ताकि पूरा पेपर एग्जाम अच्छे से निकल जाए. Yes. So amulets are there. Okay. So amulets and copper tablet, which depicts a number of trees, plants and animals, which may have or had cultic significance, The people tree, okay, the people tree appears often and may have been venerated, A seal found a seal found at Mohenjo-daro, a seal found at Mohenjo-daro shows a row of 7 figures, a row of 7 figures with long braids, standing in front of a peepal tree, which has a horned figure, standing in it, suggesting a connection with later tradition of 7 rishis or Saptarishi. Okay, so you can find in the present time also that apart from worshipping the deities, apart from the image worshipping, many a time we worship the natural things also, like a peepal tree. Okay, you put water sometimes in it, you tie some kind of sacred thread around it, all these things are there. So this kind of evidences we have find in the Harappan civilization also. And there was a seal which gives a depiction of 7 rishi which are standing in front of a horned deity, and basically it gives a picture of what? That Shiva was giving some kind of knowledge to the Saptarishis. So 7 Saptarishis are standing and they are receiving some kind of knowledge from Shiv, which is basically the proto-Shiva of the present time. Okay, that it is being suggested. Some of the animals depicted on seals may had cultic significance. The bull, a symbol of male virility or male virility, in many, the bull, a symbol of male virility in many ancient cultures, seems to have been particularly important. Two Harappan seals appear to represent animals being carried in processions, and one of them resembles a bull or cow. So basically it is being suggested that animal worship was there. Okay, animal worship is being suggested. The composite animals, like 2 animals are depicted on one seal, and sometimes human can also be depicted, like a half human and a half tiger, half elephant, half bull. These kind of ceilings are also been found. So the composite animals and the unicorn, हैरी पॉटर वाला, ठीक है, and the unicorn depicted on some seals may also have some sort of religious or mythological significance. Their motive such as the symbol of swastik, ऐसे होता है ना, this symbol swastik may have been associated with protective function, or suggesting auspiciousness. Okay. The Great Bath found at Mohenjo-daro. Was probably the scene of an elite ritual activity involving ceremonial bathing. So गंगा नहाने वाला concept, okay, bathing, ceremonial bathing, गंगा नहाने वाला concept जो है, ठीक है, so that kind of concept would have been there. The most striking evidence suggesting ritualistic practices comes from the fire altars found on Citadel Mound at Kalibangan. Found on Citadel Mound at Kalibangan. Shamanism practiced whereby Harappan people were using. Yes, we do get evidences of this concept of shamanism. Basically, what is the concept of shamanism? When you use this amulet in order to get some kind of evils, or so that evil spirit do not come to you. जैसे आज के डेट में in the modern time वो कहते हैं ना भूत चढ़ गया है. So this was basically, so yes, this concept was there in the Harappan civilization also. See, whatever today we, by and large, whatever the ritualistic or the understanding of the human civilization or the present form of worship, what do we find in the present day Hinduism, all its nascent form has been found by and large in the Harappan civilization also. And evidences I have given, all kind of here, whether it is related to this fire altar practices, whether it is related to nature worship, paganism, whether it is related to animal worship, whether it is related to deity worship, female worship, male worship, all these things evidences are there. But still the limitation is that in the absence of some kind of written evidences, we are not able to come out with a full picture. That is the one of the greatest limitation of the Harappan civilization. So we cannot come to a final evidence that okay, yes, this was the religion of the Harappan civilization and this was not, and hence we will say that this is the religion. Rather, whatever the archaeological evidences are there, we have to combine it together, we have to write it together and present a broad picture of the Harappan civilization. That is the way how we study the Harappan civilization. So this is with regard to the religious ideas, and one of the sub point of the where again the religious idea is reflected is the funerary practices. Okay, the funerary practices. Still, the burying of dead is again a part of a ritual activity. You can understand it with present time also. Many kind of rituals take place when one person dies, whether it is related to any religion. So, funerary practices also give us the idea of the religious ideas of the people. Okay. Now, Harappan cemeteries have been located at sites such as Harappa, Kalibangan, Lothal, Rakhigadi and Surkotada. The most common method of burial was to place the body of the deceased in an extended position with the head towards north, either in a simple pit, or brick chamber. Grave goods including food, pottery, tools and ornaments were placed along with the body. Okay, so these are some of the general features what we generally find in the disposal method of the Harappans. Now there are some types of burial methods or burial mechanisms are there. So first is the fractional burial. fractional burial. Fractional burial. Fractional burial basically means what? Where the body, write it down, where the body was exposed to the elements and then the bones are gathered, the bones are then gathered and buried. Bones are then gathered and buried. So basically what does it mean? That when a person would have died, they would keep the body at some distance outside the location, outside the settlement. It will be eaten by the animals, and then whatever will be left, that will be brought and then it will be buried. So this is what is some kind of fractional burial. Okay, and their evidences has been found from Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Okay. So first is fractional burial, then the second is the urn burial. Urn burials. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Now, urn burial basically suggests cremation. It basically suggests cremation. It means first the body will be burnt, then the ashes will be collected, it will be kept in some kind of box or a pot, and then it will be buried. So that kind of the thing is the urn burials. Okay, and we have evidences from Lothal. We find this kind of evidence from Lothal. Okay. So this is about all the practices which are related or which gives evidence or understanding about the religious practices of the Harappan civilization. Okay. So starting with female worship to male worship to animal worship to nature worship and certain kind of funerary practices, all these ideas help us to understand the religious ideology of the Harappan civilization. Okay, again the thing. Now we have studied the salient features of the Harappan civilization. Now we are moving towards the second last topic of the Harappan civilization, that is the late Harappan phase. We are going to study now the late Harappan phase of the Harappan civilization. एलिमेंट्स का मतलब यही होता है कि किसी भी कोई नेचुरल एलिमेंट हो गया, उसको छोड़ दिया, वहीं पे रख दिया, अब वो कई महीनों के बाद में अपने आप सड़ गल के उसको कोई खा के निकल गया. दैट इज मीन्ड बाय दैट एलिमेंट्स. Yes, we find in the present day also that they will leave the body and the vultures will come and they will eat the entire, and when the bones will left, then they will collect it and then they will bury it down. So this kind of method is there. Okay. Now we are studying the late Harappan phase of the Harappan civilization. So again, as we had made when we were studying the late early Harappan phase and the mature Harappan phase, we had made a kind of table. So again, how it is referred, that is the nomenclature, its time period, and then its features. Okay. So basically it is referred to as an era of localization, because by this time the centers are declining, they are in the state of decline. Whatever the craft production activities are there, they are limited to some sites. So that is why whatever the demand and the supply is there, whatever the features are there, they are limited to some sites. That is why it is referred to as era of localization. Okay. The time period basically is from 1900 to 1300 BCE. Okay. And the feature is this is one of the first point, that is we find that there is a decline and abandonment of sites, okay, and there is rise in pastoral mode of production. So from urban area they are migrating towards the village area, that is being reflected. Urban activities are coming down, not getting totally extinguished, but it is coming down. Okay. Now write down the sites. Okay, sites of the late Harappan phase. There are five geographical zones of the late Harappan phase. First Sindh. Second West Punjab and Ghaggar Hakra Valley. West Punjab and Ghaggar Hakra Valley. Eastern Punjab and Haryana. The Ganga Yamuna Doab. West Punjab and the Ghaggar Hakra Valley, Eastern Punjab and Haryana, the Ganga Yamuna Doab, Kutch and Saurashtra region. Okay, these are the areas where the 5 geographical zones where the late Harappan sites have been found. I repeat. First is Sindh, second is West Punjab and the Ghaggar Hakra Valley, third is Eastern Punjab and Haryana, fourth is the Ganga Yamuna Doab, and the fifth is Kutch and the Saurashtra region. Okay. Now, first in Sindh, the late Harappan phase is represented by the Jhukhar culture or the Jhukhar culture. Jhukhar culture at sites at sites such as Jukhar, Chanhudaro and Amri. Chanhudaro and Amri. Chanhudaro and Amri. The transition from the mature Harappan to later Harappan phase in this region does not show any sudden discontinuity, There were gradual changes in the seals, a decrease in the frequency of cubical weights and writing came to be confined only to pottery. So this is about the Sindh. Second phase we are talking, that is the West Punjab and the Ghaggar Hakra Valley. In the Punjab province, of Pakistan and the Ghaggar Hakra Valley, the late Harappan phase is represented by the symmetry H culture. Okay. There is a decline in the number of settlements. This is again an archaeological convention of naming a site. Okay, a site can be larger. For example, a large area is there. Here we find the Ghaggar Hakra region. So some of the sites it is named after the excavator. So this is also one symmetry H culture, basically represent the one of the name of the excavator. On the basis of that, this name has been given. Okay, this is an archaeological convention. Many conventions are there. Either you name it with the first site or the person who has done the excavation. So this is what is symmetry H culture. There is a decline in the number of settlements. The settlements are small. Houses are houses are generally made of wattle and daub, of wattle and daub, of wattle and daub, but the agricultural base was very diverse, while there was abandonment or reduction in population at some sites, there was increase in number of settlements. At some sites. The data suggest an eastward and southward shift of settlements and people. So generally, if we take the map and if we find that the mature Harappan phases, they are largely in the western part. Now in the later Harappan part, these people are migrating towards the eastern and towards the southern part. Okay. Basically a kind of, you can understand, गांव में some raw materials are used in order to make the houses. For example, you can understand it as prali also, along with a combination of mud bricks. All these are the materials which are used. So that is the wattle and daub. These reflect, you can find it in just, all of you need to do what when you get, first of all, these kind of words and the terms. Better is that you watch the images. So that will remain at your mind for a longer period of time. Okay, watch the images, certain, basically for this prehistoric part of the Indian history, you need to some technical terms, some tools are there. All of you need, when you are reading and when you are revising it, use the Google to watch the images so that it lives in your mind for a longer period of time. Okay. It is a site. It is a site which is named after the person. Her graves. Her name is, according to archaeological convention, whenever we are discovering a site, there are certain methods are there of naming a particular site. Either you name it with the, so for example, if we talk about the entire Harappan civilization, if you had attended the first class, then I have told it that as it was the first site to be discovered, that is why the entire civilization is referred to as the Harappan civilization. Sometimes when this is overlapping in nature, 2-3 sites are simultaneously excavated at the same point of time. So what will happen, that or within a site, one area has been excavated and another area has not been excavated. So in order to distinguish, or sometimes there are distinguishing features within a one site. So in order to distinguish the one site from the another site within a one particular site, you will name that particular site after the person who have done the excavation. So this is the convention of the archaeology of naming a site with the person who has done the excavation. So cemetery H culture, basically it is named after the person who has done the excavation, and this is the Hargreaves cemetery H. Here basically the cemetery means what? The funerary practices. Basically represent the funerary practices. It was identified this person, and in this, all this site, that is the second phase, that is in the Ghaggar Hakra region, we find this kind of element, similarities are there. Symmetry H, symmetry H. So whatever the features are there, that would be found in all of the entire sites. So that is why one common name, convention of archaeology, name after the excavator. That is the thing. Okay. So another, after that, the evidence from mature and the late Harappan sites, the evidence from mature and late Harappan sites shows a complex interplay of elements of continuity and change, compared to mature Harappan pottery, the slip पकड़ते हैं ना उसको, slip, this part, इसको कहा जाता है slip. Okay, compared to the mature Harappan pottery, the slip of the late Harappan pottery, is less bright. The pots tend to be thicker and sturdier. Various elements of Harappan urbanism such as the cities, script, seals, specialized craft, and long distance trade declined in the late Harappan phase, but did not completely disappear. Next para. A notable development in the late Harappan phase was the diversification diversification of agriculture at Perak in Baluchistan, there was the beginning of double cropping, that is wheat. There is beginning of double cropping, that is wheat and barley, were being grown as winter crops, and rice and millets as summer crops. In Gujarat and Maharashtra, various kinds of millets were being grown as summer crops. Okay, so all of you should remember this point, important, because 2023 is the year of International Year of Millets, and UPSC has a tendency that the thing which has been in past, they will try to give out a question from that. So all of you are going to appear in 2024, then at least you should remember that even from the sites of the late Harappan phase, we get the evidence of the millets. Okay, remember this fact in your mind. The general picture presented by the late Harappan phase, is one of a breakdown of urban networks and the expansion of rural ones. Okay, so this is the entire picture of the late Harappan phase. You have to remember at least the characteristic features of the late Harappan phase and how they are distinguished from each other. Now what all of you can do is that after this, all of you can make a chart. Early Harappan phase, mature Harappan phase, and the late Harappan phase. Each one distinguishing factors, write it down within one page and always have it, and then try to memorize it. Make one page, write down early Harappan, mature Harappan, late Harappan. Names of the site, the distinguishing features, okay, and if there is some kind of similarities and the differences, you can also make a table of that also, chart of that also. So that will be helpful. In one way you can understand it. This is the one thing. The second thing is to make again one note where you write down the salient features of the Harappan civilization. In that you write down the political, social and the religious aspect. What is the understanding and what are the examples, how you have to write it down. That is the another way of consolidating or making a crisp of your notes, and for revision at a later point of time. This is the another strategy. Okay. Now we are coming towards the decline of the Harappan civilization. How we shall understand the decline of this civilization? This what we are going to study. Okay. So topic is now decline of Harappan civilization. Start writing. At some point decline of Harappan civilization. At some point of time, things started going wrong in the Harappan cities. Decline had set in at Mohenjo-daro by 2200 BCE. Decline had set in at Mohenjo-daro by 2200 BCE, and the settlement had come to an end by 2000 BCE. In some places this civilization continued till 1800 BCE. Apart from the dates, the pace of decline also varied. Mohenjo-daro and Dholavira gave a picture of gradual decline, while some sites the life ended all of a sudden. And this is our concern to know that how do we understand the decline, whether it is gradual or whether it is one day or a spontaneous result. Okay. One of one of the most popular explanation, one of the most popular explanation of the decline of the Harappan civilization, decline of the Harappan civilization is that they were destroyed by the Aryan invaders, accompanied by other factors such as floods, decline in trade, and overutilization of natural resources. This argument given was based on references in the Rig Veda to various kinds of forts, attack on walled cities, and the epithet Puramdhara or Purandhara or Puramdara. Or Puramdara, it basically means fort destroyer. Okay, given to god Indra, and must have a historical basis and reflect an Aryan invasion of the Harappan cities. So while studying the Rig Veda, we find one evidence where these evidences are mentioned that the god Indra, in some kind of one of the story and in one of the hymns, he has been praised that he is the destroyer of fort. He destroys the walled cities, he destroys everything. And when we just try to look just before this composition of the Rig Veda, we find the evidence, we find the Harappan civilization. So scholars were of the view that might the Aryan invasion would have led to a decline of this empire, of this civilization. But now the counter argument. What can be the most counter argument for this? अब तक तो आप लोग को इतना knowledge हो जाना चाहिए कि you can provide a counter argument for this. And while studying the political organization, we had talked about this concept. No, fortifications, they are giving the evidence that the Indra is destroying this Purandhara, the fort destroyer. No, I am asking the counter argument. What can be the counter argument for this thesis?
That there is no weapon found.
Yes. If there would have been a such kind of massacre, such kind of large scale warfare, that they would have destroyed the entire civilization, evidences would have been there, of the bones would be there, of the materials which have been used in the warfare. All these evidences would have been there. So this is a thing that we don't find anything. Write down. Some scholar. So, but at the same time, after that we have written the invasion of the Harappan cities. After that, but at the same time, archaeological sources are silent on invasion, as no evidence of any kind of military assault, no evidence of any kind of military assault or conflict at any of the Harappan sites, have been found. Then what could be the possible reason for this decline? If Aryan invasion is not the theory, then what can be that? Yes. Some scholars are of the view that natural disasters such as recurring episodes of flooding induced by tectonic movements and the onset of a drier climate could have led to the decline of Harappan civilization. Next point. The issue of environmental changes resulting in decreasing soil fertility, decreasing decreasing soil fertility, floods, increasing soil salinity, overcultivation, overgrazing, and excessive cutting of trees for fuel and farming would have depleted the resources and led to decline. In some archaeological evidences, some ये वाला नहीं, some ये वाला सम आएगा. In some, archaeological evidence does not give direct access to the possible social and political dimensions of the decline of the Harappan civilization, full stop. What it does indicates very clearly is that the Harappan culture underwent a gradual process of de-urbanization. So, in this way, finally, the topic has ended. Okay. So, if you are getting a question like this, where you have to, or the question asks you about how the decline of the Harappan civilization has taken place, you have to mention like this, that you start first of all with the Aryan theory, okay, then mention about the other factor, then you give the counter thesis to this Aryan invasion, and then you mention about the other factors, that the possible explanation of the decline of the Harappan civilization lies in other theories also, like the flooding phenomena, the natural disasters, the environmental issues, okay, and at the conclusion you say in that manner that how can we understand the decline of the Harappan civilization, okay. So in this way we have completed your topic of the Harappan civilization, starting from the origin, the story behind the discovery of the Harappan civilization, the debates with respect to the origin of the Harappan civilization, the features, early Harappan, mature Harappan, the late Harappan, the salient aspect of the Harappan civilization, its decline, and the debates which are related to the decline of the Harappan civilization. Okay? And now I am going to give you one homework. Okay? So write down one question. Write down one question. All of you have to submit or give the answer by tomorrow. Okay. Online student, when you are sending the answer, write down. Either mention that history class homework in that some logical way, whatever gives, so that people can identify and then they can send it to me. Okay. And all of you should be knowing that at the support@Lukmaan IAS, you have to send your paper. Okay. So write down the question. So the question is, okay, this is your homework. और नहीं लिख के लेके आओगे तो कल क्लास से बाहर निकाल दूंगा. जो कल का जो क्लास मिस हुआ है वो खैर आपको बताया आप लोग को पता चल जाएगा, बट इसका राइटिंग आपको आंसर आप लोग को लिखना है. अगर कल क्लास होता है, सो वी आर गोइंग टू स्टडी दिस. वन इज द आर्ट ऑफ हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन and the Neolithic Chalcolithic and the early Iron Age. Next topic is this: art of the Harappan civilization and the Neolithic, Chalcolithic and the early Iron Age. Why? Because told in the beginning that the Harappan civilization was contemporary to this Neolithic and the Chalcolithic people. Okay, so we have to study their features and distinctions also. Other than that, this question, I want answer from all of you. How far do you agree that Harappan cities reflected planning? Explain with distinctive feature of the Harappan cities. Okay, 15 marks, 250 words. Okay. Any doubt, any question, any issue?
Sir, urn burials क्या है? Urn burials.
Okay, urn burials. Basically, urn burials will reflect what? That when a person has died, he will first either be cremation, या तो उसको जला दो, either you burn the body or either you keep the body exposed to other elements, like keep the body so that other animals, scavengers can eat it. Now whatever will remain, you take the bones and you keep it within a box and then you cremate it. So this is what is urn burial. नहीं, उसमें भी रहेगा, जरूरी नहीं है कि क्रीमेशन में सिर्फ, इसमें दोनों चीजें हैं. फ्रैक्शनल बरियल, व्हाट वी फाइंड बेसिकली द एलिमेंट, द बॉडी विल बी एक्सपोज टू द एलिमेंट एंड वट एवर इज लेफ्ट suppose the bones is left, you just dig the pit and you keep it inside. In the urn burial, whatever is, two methods are there. Either you keep it from the elements or either you burn it. Now whatever is left, you will collect that and take it in a pot and then you will bury it. That is the difference. Okay.